Hey, it's May Q&A, and I love the questions that you guys submitted for this show. The topics that came out of them were pretty cool. We talked about what the holdup is for the next generation of adopters with essential oils, how to know who to pay attention to, microwave mindsets, and will the true leader please stand up? I wasn't quite sure what to title this episode, so I went with questions from the future. Enjoy, and please share if you find value in it.
Welcome to Whole Fit Talks. This is a show just for you, somebody interested in taking ownership of your health, leading your life, and living your legacy. And I'm so pumped you're here because I am another you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing this out with your friends and with your teams. Let's dive into this week's episode. So hello to all of you hopping on live. I want to honor you if you are here live with me today. We have, between Instagram and Facebook, we have about 100 people who have popped in already. If you who are here live have a question that you want to have answered, it'll be more short form because I have 5 really juicy questions to get to today. But if you have a question, you're on live, please put it into the chat. I just want to go through a few quick updates with you. So I've mentioned the Healthy Habits program a few times. I won't be talking about it too much more on here because we're now moving into getting it ready for our oil community. But this is a program that I've worked with my team to develop for the Whole Fit Oil community. And for those of you that aren't part of our team, I am going to hop on next week, and I'm going to share with you a bit of our process. So how we came together to create something that is going to run for 21 days in June, to take the Healthy Habits Kit and take it to that next level, supporting people in implementing the rituals and routines that really create that optimal health. So we've been working a lot on it, and it's coming together. And I'll share that more of the behind the scenes with you in case you want to offer something similar to your team if you're not on our team. If you want to learn about that kit, that Healthy Habits collection, I do have info on my blog. If you just go to wholefit.com to the blog section, I did a whole live stream video, how to use the products in that collection and why it really is the best way to start with doTERRA if you've been holding off, okay? While you're over on the blog, you guys, you might want to check out the blog I posted last week on my cacao coffee super brew. I finally had a moment to, well, or 20 moments to record a video showing you how I make it, why I love it. It's all there for you if you want to linger on the blog for a little bit this week and learn a new way to brew the super brew. Okay, so I shared all the details there with you. And then that money series that I've been talking about for a while now, I had to put it on the back burner because obviously this podcast is a complete free value add thing I do for you in the community. But I've had to shift my focus over the last few weeks towards programs that are actually part of my work and programs that are for the community. So I will be recording that money series end of next week. I might even hop on and bring you guys into the experience of recording the podcast. When I do audio only episodes that I release to the podcast, I think I'm going to start streaming it because I love that feeling of just being able to observe, right? Somebody in their process. So if that appeals to you, then you'll see me pop up live on Instagram to share that. All right, so let's get to some community questions before I get to the 5 today. The 5 that I did take today are really good. I think it's going to, and just so you know, if you want to make sure your question does get answered on the broadcast, make it a question that will serve the whole. That isn't just something specific to your own situation, but something that could actually serve the greater community. That's a sure bet way to have a question be featured on this show. Let me just scroll up though and see who we have live. Hey, Lizzie, she said, how do you encourage development of your doTERRA leaders versus duplication? You know, something you hear me say a lot here, and I don't mean to be a broken record about it, but it really does all start with you. Lizzie, as a leader, If you have a team, it all starts with you. When your team sees that you are somebody committed to your own development, the right people will catch that, and they'll be inspired by your example. You know, I really don't think that this whole model of duplication works the way we think it does. So in doTERRA, for example, we have a duplication model business where we do something and then we help someone else do that same thing, and that success grows. But it's very much, it all hinges on your personal example and what you're modeling. When the leader at the top stops, the whole team tends to stop. Very, very rarely does somebody boom, blossom, and skyrocket in the presence of a lukewarm leader, unless somebody within that organization was a true leader right out of the gate. There are people that I've enrolled into my doTERRA business who literally needed not one thing to go. They're a leader. They're a leader in life. They come into this and it's just like boom, because they are a leader in their life. They're somebody who has influence over people because they've done the work to get there, and that's the development. So that's my answer there. You encourage it through your own example. Okay, scrolling for questions in capital letters. Okay, and remember, keep your questions something that would help other people, okay? Let me hop over to Instagram. I'll take a few there. Charlie, hey, went to the Europe convention and loved it. Currently uses the oils for personal use. How would you transition to sharing them as a business? You know what? Honestly, just make it your goal right now for the next couple of months to work on your own self-care. And in the moment, when you're using an oil and navigating and learning about it, open up and share. Honestly, if I look back over the last decade at what I've built, it all happened through that process of me learning, being committed to my own development, and being willing to share that with other people, being willing to take people on a journey. And as I'm learning and as I'm applying, offering that opportunity for other people to do the same by showing up and sharing. So I think that that's a really great way to start your business, is to begin it as a student and open up and allow people to come into the journey with you and see how you're doing it. Because when they build that relationship with you as somebody who is hungry to learn and somebody who's committed to their own development and their health, you're somebody that people are going to want to join and be a part of something with, because that's what we're looking for today. We want to be able to trust that person that we're going to, you know, link up with and build something with, right? Lotus said, Lotus Rising, finally did dry brushing for the first time. Now I'm sick. I'm not sure if you're connecting that to dry brushing, but she said, I've used Slim and Sassy, much needed lymph movement. Perhaps you can touch on this. I don't know. I mean, correlation and causation, it's really tempting sometimes to think, oh, I just did this one new thing and now I'm sick and it's because of that one new thing. The reality is dry skin brushing stimulates your body to move the lymph. So yes, absolutely. It may have actually caused things that were dumped into the lymph to circulate and not be expelled from the body efficiently. So take a break. I don't know how you're defining sick, but whenever your body is feeling run down, it's talking to you. So you need to slow down. But you know, as with anything, you guys, don't jump into something and just go full force dry skin brushing every single day, right? Integrate it, do it once or twice a week, and then, you know, work with it and support your body in other ways. Dry skin brushing is a form of supporting your body in detoxing. So you want to make sure that you are giving your body opportunity to release what's being stirred up through deep breathing, through sweat, right? Through sweating. You want to, you know, even getting outside, body movement, things like that. Okay, I'll take one more. And then we're going to go into the 5 questions today, because there's a few of them that I want to marinate on a little bit longer, because I know they need more of an explanation. Okay, let's So it's kind of tough on Instagram to find comments because everything moves so quickly. Let me see on Facebook. Okay, Toby said, knowing what and when to put something in the parking lot / back burner is sometimes overwhelming and hard to navigate. How would you suggest developing that process more? I have a feeling that Toby's in my Beautiful Life Lab program, where one of the components of that program is to know how to prioritize what's important and what's not. And things that go in a parking lot, which is another way of describing something you'd like to get to, but that you know is not important right now. You know, I think it's wise to look at your year in seasons, okay? So rather than just having this constant rolling parking lot, look at your year and break it up into 4 quarters. And the parking lot, what might happen this year for you, Toby, is you might end up this year with a massive parking lot of things, which is a good thing, because I want to encourage you to look at that list and think, what is the story this is telling me? What can I start taking action towards? Or, really good question, what's the one thing I could do that takes care of several things on this list? And you know, if you look at your year in terms of seasons, like I said, you can start applying a theme to each quarter, so that things in the parking lot that you could bucket together can somehow evolve into a process throughout your year. What the parking lot approach also teaches us, you guys, is that we are often hanging on to things that need to just completely go off the plate, okay? And when you have things in your parking lot that every single week you're moving to the next week, it's probably something that A, does not excite you, so you're gonna do it with crappy energy, so why even bother? And B, it's probably something that you know is not a priority, right? So you keep moving it. Why? So stop telling yourself a story about how it needs to get done and figure out when the right time is to get it done, okay? So I love the parking lot approach. I do it more strategically on a quarterly basis, where I look at everything on my calendar that didn't get done and I make some decisions. It's kind of like moving to a new home and deciding what you're going to take with you. It's a costly decision at that point. It's gonna cost you money to move everything you currently have from that one home to the new home. So you make some decisions, right? Because what if you didn't need to hire such a massive truck to move everything, right? So I want you to think about your calendar and your commitments in the same way. It's costly to keep moving it every single week. So make some decisions. When your parking lot gets so big, try to understand the story of what's going on there, okay? All right, let's get to some questions. These are the 5 submitted for the show. If you have a question, like I said, that you want to have be part of an upcoming show, you can go to wholefit.com/podcast. Just scroll all the way down to the bottom there and you'll find the question form where you can submit it. And it's best ever if your question is one that will help more people than just yourself, okay? Good chance it's gonna get covered on an upcoming show. Okay, first question. Hey, Ange, I'm 23 years old and I have so many goals in life, but one of my deepest intentions is to be the healthiest version of myself, to eat the best, nourish my body, and feel the best, etc. A big part of my motivation is seeing myself be financially stable so I can be the healthiest version of myself. I want to know, when you were 23 years old, did you feel like this was out of reach? Were you always as healthy and wise as you are now? And what helped you over time get to where you are today? Okay, first off, I love this question so much. I'm obsessed with it, okay? The very fact that you're thinking these kinds of things and being intentional about that and wanting to live at that higher level shows how unique you are, truly, because most people, especially your age, early 20s, are not asking these questions. Most people live with a microwave mindset today when they think about their future. Okay, they're not thinking ahead. You can see it just in the decisions that people are making with their finances and making with their health and with our planet. They're not thinking of the future. They're literally just thinking of themselves in the now. Okay, microwave mindset. So 23 years old, that was, oh my gosh, 16 years ago. Okay, I was working as a store manager at Starbucks. I'm just trying to go back in my mind to that time. I had been working at Starbucks for a couple years at that point. Started off as a barista, worked my way up through the store, worked hard to grow through that in my first like real job, right? At the same time, I was studying health sciences at Brock University. Chris and I think Chris is on right now. He's at the fire hall today, but I don't know if he's on. I saw him pop on quick in the beginning. We had been dating for 4 years at that point. I will tell you that I guess something that's been consistent most of my life, for sure my whole adult life, I have never been interested in wasting time. Like that's really, it's something I'm always thinking about. And this probably goes back to pain, to loss, to losing my dad when I was young. We went through a lot of loss, a lot of heavy times as a child. And I think it really, it cemented that in me to not waste a moment, not waste a day, and not waste my time doing things or with people that were not part of what I knew my vision was. And obviously that changes when you're young. You know, my vision at that point was very different than what it was now. And that really is the point, that our vision does keep evolving. But honestly, all I needed when I was young was to have a few people in my life illustrate what's possible through how they live. My parents were a big influence on my life with this, my grandparents as well. Just in expanding my vision of what's important and what you can do when you really focus on something and show up and serve with your gifts. Athletes greatly inspire me, to be honest. I love the mindset and the ethics that an athlete has, where they show up every single day, regardless of how they feel. They show up, right? They're professionals. Successful entrepreneurs inspire me. And my point in sharing this is, you're somebody who's hungry for more at a young age. And what I invite you to do is study people who are modeling success as you define it. And with that, like I said, don't pay attention to people who are not where you want to go. Okay. So for me, like, I don't really pay any attention to people who complain, to people who let their fears run their life, to sheep, people who just do what they're told and don't ask. It's boring to me. I keep my circle super small for this reason. It's why I follow less than 100 people on Instagram, for example. Like I'm really, really protective. And also I'm really, what I'm wanting you to do here is really define what inspires you, who inspires you. Be mindful with your time and who you're giving it to. And, you know, because really the people you're spending your time with, the things that you're filling your days with right now are forming who you're going to be in 5 years. I mean, so if this is a topic some of you listening to this are really into, you love My Beautiful Life Lab, because this is what we do. It's like a deep dive into what's most important in your life as you define it, and helps you set up protective boundaries around that. So the one last thing I'll say is, it's one step at a time, right? I think when we look backwards, for those of you that have had a couple decades under your belt as an adult, when you look backwards, you realize that a lot changes over time, right? And it would have felt super overwhelming to know all that was ahead. So I think in our early 20s, for sure, it's defined, for those of us that wake up early, it's defined as this time where we're trying to figure out who we are, right? And what really lights us up. That is our 20s. You know, as you move into your 30s, you become more aware of who you are. I think by your 40s, all of that people pleasing falls away. If you're somebody who's awake, you're very clear on who you are, and that's the gift of aging, right? So, you know, I think it's so cool you're asking this question. Early 20s, I love it. I hope that helps some of you. You know, even if you're not early 20s, you know, it's never too late. It's never too late to begin thinking this way and analyzing where we're giving our time and why, and being really protective of that. It's never too late. Okay, question 2. I'm going to hang out here for a little bit. So it's one that needs a little more explanation. It's from Nicole. She says, Does doTERRA release the links to research studies, like peer-reviewed human studies that are being performed? I know you've mentioned it would be irresponsible to publicly state that a specific oil is good for a disease, but is there a library where we can direct people to read the studies? doTERRA mentions the PubMed and Google Scholar on their blog. Are these the best tools to direct people to? Also, can you speak about the involvement of the FDA with essential oils and why it would or wouldn't be a good idea for them to be regulating it? Okay, so there's a lot to this question. Okay, I guess where I want to start with it is essential oils are not regulated by the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, because that's not their domain, okay? Essential oils fall within the natural health category. And because no natural health product is allowed to claim that it can treat or prevent or cure or mitigate really any disease, even if the scientific research does back up the validity of that, you can't make those claims about a natural health product because this is the playground of the pharmaceutical industry, which the FDA does govern, okay? So I want to start there. So if the FDA feels that a company is stepping over that line, they're going to receive a warning letter. So doTERRA, back in, I think it was 2014, it was right around the time that I started using the oils, doTERRA received a warning letter from the FDA, not because of what doTERRA was doing, but because of what the distributors were saying. There were distributors, wellness advocates as they're called today, that were making disease claims about essential oils, okay? They were making a lot of outrageous disease claims. And I say outrageous because there are obviously situations in life that essential oils are not the tool to be using, right? But this is because at that time, essential oils were very new. There was, the research on them was light. There wasn't a lot out there, but there was a lot of excitement about what they can do when they're pure. And there was a lot of sharing happening, and it got out of control, really. And I would say that 5 to 7 years ago, we were living also in a different time where people who were going to be using essential oils or attracted to them, they were looking for common language. They were looking for something that could replace, in a way. That was the mindset. We have made really great shifts to be where we are today, which I would define as a space of honoring essential oils in their place in our lifestyle and prevention. This is the name of the game now, right? But that represented the early majority. The people that started with doTERRA in the first 10 years were the ones that were seeking a focus of lifestyle and prevention. We've now hit a new phase, and I'll get into that in just a moment. Now, as a wellness advocate, okay, so as somebody building a doTERRA business, the reason it's irresponsible of you to suggest the essential oils as a treatment for disease is because you have financial gain through doing that. And it could be very dangerous of you to suggest that somebody uses an essential oil in place of a drug that a doctor has prescribed for somebody, okay? That can be a very blurry line. Hey, Dr. Fawcett's on, she said, with power comes responsibility. Yeah, and so I'll take that and segue it to doTERRA at large. I have people, I had somebody ask me this week, how come Sage, which is a Canadian retailer that sells their version of essential oils, how come they can make disease claims in their store, but doTERRA has taken the stance to not do that, even though doTERRA could? And the reason is that, like Dr. Fawcett just said, with power comes great responsibility. doTERRA is the largest essential oil company in the world, the purest essential oil company in the world, with a huge vision for healthcare. And because of that, they are they are leading this with great integrity. It would be low-hanging fruit for doTERRA to come out and start positioning the oils as treatments, okay? Because doTERRA is focused on long game. I'm focused on long game. Many of the leaders on here, long game, integrity, vision for where this is going, and being a true solution within the healthcare concern today. And because of that, so even when I first started, I started at that time, we have a global community just on my team of almost 100,000 people around the world, and not once have we ever positioned the oils as treatment. Now, of course, I'm sure there are people on my team who have done that, but I've always set the tone. Even if we're behind closed doors, you guys, I would be very careful with how you're positioning the oils. We have to shift our focus to be about prevention and lifestyle, because that is the only thing that's going to work long term, okay? We have to emphasize that importance. Now, what you might find interesting is that the pharmaceutical industry very much so recognizes the power of plants, okay? That's how the industry, for the most part, exists, because a synthetic version had to be created in order for it to be sold within the model that the pharmaceutical industry exists as today. They had to make a replicate of the components within nature to create a drug, a synthetic version, to be able to sell, okay? There's a book called, it's expensive, but it's called Botanical Medicine in Clinical Practice. Robin, have you read that book? I just got turned on to it. And it goes into detail on various drugs that include essential oils such as Tamiflu, because they haven't been able to mimic in a lab everything that nature does. I often equate this to breast milk, right? It's very difficult to create a man-made version with the intelligence of breast milk. There are things that come close, obviously, right? And not everyone can breastfeed, right? So it's great that we have these alternatives, but they have yet to be able to create something as intuitive as breast milk. You guys have heard me go here before. Essential oils are like breast milk in that sense. They are not able to completely capture and mimic the intelligence and the intuitive nature of that solution. Okay, they cannot replicate it in a lab. And actually in that book I just mentioned, they say that what we might right now call, that book is called Botanical Medicine in Clinical Practice. Okay, we'll link it up in the show notes. Everything I mentioned that's linkable, we'll have in the show notes. If you're on Facebook, my assistant's posting the link for you there. What they say in this book is that what we now refer to as alternative medicine has helped form 40%, at least 40% of all pharmaceuticals in Western practice, okay? So it's no big secret that essential oils are powerful, right? But synthetic drugs are created with a single focus, and they often work really well within that single focus. A drug is designed, right, to elicit that very specific reaction, and the side effects that we know come with all drugs are viewed as something you just have to trade in order to have that one desired benefit, right? And I'm sure many of you listening to this right now have experienced life-changing results through using a pharmaceutical drug. They're not evil, okay? It's just that there's a time and place. And so here's where it gets messy in the body, because your body, well, there's an ant. Your body does not look at anything through a single focused lens. Your body does not look at things the way a drug looks at things, okay? So what you do to one part, you do to the whole. This is that holistic view. This is why a holistic approach in our lifestyle is truly the only path to optimal health, because this is the language that the body speaks. The body speaks as a whole. It does not look at anything through this single lens, through that lens that a drug does. And so when you use plant medicine, herbal medicine, as a first route, it would be because you want to receive benefit, almost immediate benefit in many situations. You try peppermint in your temples and you tell me you don't instantly feel that, okay? When you use plant medicine, you receive the benefit of it with little to no side effects, right? It's a very efficacious first route when you have something coming up in the body, okay? And while a pharmaceutical drug has one narrow focus that creates a bit of a tornado and confusion in your body, using it, something like an essential oil will create a synergistic effect. It recruits all systems of the body to work together because it speaks the same language. The goal of essential oils and the goal of your body is the same, in that both are focused on bringing you back to homeostasis. That is the number one goal of your body. When things go off, the body's main focus is how can we come back to homeostasis. So all of that to say, here's what needs to happen going forward, you guys. Most doctors, nurses, pharmacists, practitioners have very little training and understanding in plant medicine, specifically with doTERRA essential oils. Because if you're new here, there's doTERRA and then there are essential oils. They are not the same thing. doTERRA sets such a high bar for quality, you cannot lump in the world of essential oils within that. It's not apples to apples, right? So we need, this is where we're headed. We need practitioners to have a greater understanding of the power of pure plant medicine, otherwise known as doTERRA. Because they have not very much of an idea of how the plants work, they can't advise their patients when they're asked. And what's been happening over the last couple of years, many of you may have found yourself in this situation where you go to see your doctor or your pharmacist to ask how this essential oil might play with that drug that you're on, and nobody knows, right? Because there's just not that education that's been happening. So this is where doTERRA's focus has shifted. It started a couple of years ago where doTERRA saw, they knew what the next decade had to be. It had to be this, right? And this is why they started the Prime Meridian initiative to basically call on all of the doctors out there in the world today that have a respect of nature and a willingness to learn, to be part of the solution. They're all coming in, okay? They're all coming in. One of them's on here right now. You guys go follow Dr. Robin Fawcett. She's amazing. doTERRA has been bringing them all together to be part of this initiative as the first wave. The next wave will be educating doctors and practitioners who haven't been open before, but see that where they're going in the way that they've been doing it is down. It's the whole model is breaking. It's overwhelmed, right? And the doctors who have their hearts in the right place want to be part of the solution. Through these healthcare facilities, not only will you have more doctors becoming educated and more patients becoming educated, but you'll also see a large body of research through human trials growing, okay? In the last 10 years, they shared at doTERRA's leadership, I think it was this year, they shared the stat that in the last 10 years, medical publications of essential oil research have increased by 400%. That was in the last decade. That's going to explode over the next 10 years. The reason that you're seeing so much research on essential oils happening now is because of the work doTERRA has done, but that's going to completely just bust open. Because here's why, okay? Here's why. The next decade, that group needs the research. That group is not as trusting of their intuition and of themselves as the first group was in the last decade. They're just not. They, the way that they would like you to engage with them is to say, just use this first, and then you've got your drugs, you've got the walk-in clinic, you've got your doctors. They're very closed off, okay? Because they've been unfortunately they've become very detached from their body's wisdom, from the wisdom within nature, and so they need the research. They need their doctor to tell them, hey, rather than taking that drug, let's explore a couple days with this, okay? That's where things are headed. And doTERRA, you guys, they're the only company in the position to take essential oils into the mainstream because of their repeated quality, right? You have to understand this. I mentioned earlier, you have companies who are making all these disease claims and don't have pure oils. They're doing that because they're short game. They know they're not going to be around in a couple years. They're doing it for profits. That's the same reason that they're cutting their oils with synthetics and fragrance. Doctors and hospitals and within the new healthcare facilities that doTERRA is working to build, the only reason, or the reason that it can only be doTERRA is because of the quality. I think there's a total of 54 tests done on every single oil. 43 are done in-house, 11 are done by a third party. And the oils go from farmer to you without going through the hands of brokers and perfumists like other essential oils do. So, I mean, all of that to say, people like me, people like us, okay, we live in the future through the choices that we make. We live in the future because of how we're taking care of our health, how we're respecting the planet, and we need to invite more people to do that in the next 10 years. And it's not about the FDA, okay? The FDA has to exist because of companies who are seeking profits over safety. And, again, I wouldn't, if you're looking, it's not the FDA's job to tell you to use an essential oil for something. And the thing is, when you look at safety, the pharmaceutical industry, I don't have a stat off the top of my head, maybe Robin does, how many people hit a merge every single day because of using a drug unsafely or even as prescribed. It's outrageous what's going on there, and the FDA is very busy with that, but they will send warning letters to companies. And this is why within the doTERRA collective, you will rarely see somebody who is a leader within doTERRA educating in an irresponsible way. If they are, that's a short game leader. Enough said about that. Okay, get a little sip. Okay, question 3 comes from Anna. She says, hello, I'm a new mom of an almost 1-year-old. Even though it's years away, I've already started thinking about schooling options, and I want to make sure the type of education we choose lines up with our home values as much as possible. I recently heard you talk in an episode about your girls attending a Waldorf school, so I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about Waldorf education in general. Of course, I'm doing a lot of my own research, but I understand things better as you articulate them, and I trust your opinions. Okay, so thanks, Anna. So I attended a private school growing up, and when my dad passed away, I was 11 at the time. My mom couldn't afford to send us anymore, and so I begged my grandma to help pay for it so I could continue the last 2 years until I graduated. It meant that much to me. And honestly, when I reflect on my own experience of attending a private school, smaller classrooms, having more individualized care, I think it really went a long way in helping me develop the confidence that I do as an adult today, and just being able to solve problems creatively and believe in myself. It really paved that path for me. And I attribute a lot of who I am today because of that experience. And so when our girls first started school, we looked into a couple of different options, but not as in depth as I wish we would. And we didn't have the money, 5 years ago to be investing. We were, I was feeling like we needed to look at different schooling options, but we just didn't give it the time that when I reflect back, I wish we had. And we started them in the public system. And trust me, this isn't me saying that the public system's bad and private is good or Waldorf is good. I want to share with you my own perspective going through this. We started them in the public school system. Chloe stayed within the public system up to grade 3, Emmy till grade 1 before we made the switch to a Waldorf school. And because as they were going, there were 2 things I realized within our experience that were not going to work, okay? Large class sizes is a huge concern. I I feel for teachers. You know, because I know so many great teachers who their heart is just like so dialed in on those kids, but they can't give the kids the experience that they want to because the class sizes are out of control. The second thing that really rubbed me wrong is I think within the public system, there's a general focus on making kids compliant and putting kids into a box and making them fit a certain mold. There's not a reverence, it seems, for the unique abilities of a child. It seems that they want everyone to go through the right metrics and get the right grade. It's just so system focused. It goes against everything I feel is the way we need to head as we're raising kids. Now, that's on me and Chris, right? As parents, like, we have our kids more than the school system does. So that development, that what we want to instill in them, that's on us, right? But if my kids are going to be spending, 6, 7, 8 hours a day at a school, I thought, what can we look to do different? Because these things were on my heart. And so what we did was we looked at a couple of options locally, and Waldorf kept coming up as I was talking to people. And we booked a tour last spring. We went through we spent a couple hours touring the school, watching the classes in action, watching the way the teachers engaged with the kids. And then we attended a May fair that they had, which was really sweet. We got to see that community happening and what it was like for everyone to just be together on a summer day, right? And then the cool opportunity was the Waldorf school has their PD days are off cycle to the public school system. So on one of the girls' PD days in the public system, they were able to go and do a day at Waldorf in the school. And honestly, after those 3 things, I did not need to look any further into this. I didn't need to read a book. I didn't need to look at any websites to understand that this is really a direction we wanted to go in. And it's hard to describe why it works. It feels like an extension of our home, where we have loving boundaries in place, but where we value and respect the girls' wisdom and intuition as they grow. Waldorf puts a high focus on the arts and creativity and community and nature. They help develop critical thinking skills and unique problem solving, which I think is really needed for our future, right? This is what we want our children to be really learning in school. The classes are smaller in size, and something cool, I don't know if this is just, I know, Robin, I'm sorry I keep calling on you because I know you're on live. I know your kids go to a Waldorf school in the UK. I don't know if it's the same there, but here, the kids stay with the same teacher from K through 8, which is unique, right? So there really are those relationships that form. They really gel and grow together, and it feels like a family. Right? It really feels like a family experience, and the school itself, the approach, they really value family time together. They rarely send home homework, at least at these levels that the girls are at. And if we travel as a family, they're really open and willing to work with us on it. So I feel like our values are much more matched. And with the kids, I'll tell you this: within a week, there was a very obvious sense of calmness and confidence in the girls when we made the switch, and their learning accelerated. Again, it's one of those things, it's in the intricacies. I'm not sure why it works. It works. And so here's what I think. I think that I can see how, with my girls anyway, I can see how the Waldorf school and their approach is going to help nurture the entrepreneurial side of my girls, to be leaders, to be adults that have confidence in themselves and the creativity to solve problems. I can see how that's already forming. So I did come across a great blog that explains the differences between Waldorf and public. If you want to have a look at it, it's just like in a nice chart. I'm seeing a lot of comments, at least on Instagram here. Yeah, a lot of you have actually seen classes in action, were blown away. There's a lot of them in Europe where it first started, Rudolf Steiner. So there's not as many here in Canada. They are in the US as well. But yeah, check through the comments. There's some good, Robin said, there's a Goop podcast with Kim John Payne about values in the home. So good. No, keep commenting. She said, "Oh, stop commenting." I'll stop asking you to comment. You probably want to like enjoy your lunch as I'm talking or something. Okay, question 4 from Carissa. As someone in doTERRA, I'm learning how to get back to the basics and not feel like I need to keep reinventing the wheel. My struggle is learning how to balance using the tools and resources I have without getting distracted or without focusing on the nitty-gritty things. You often mention how important it is to not let your phone hold you captive, but I'm finding that when it comes to contacting people, I typically end up having to use my phone for that, and I get caught up in the back and forth. Same thing with my computer. She goes on to say she feels like her devices are running her, okay? How many of you can relate to that, right? We all find ourselves in that situation. Here's what I think. We teach other people what to expect from us through how we set it up and through how we respond. So it starts with you. Set your working hours and stick to them. If your working hours are 9 to 3 each day because your kids are in school and you want to really honor family time at night, then stop getting back to people at 9 p.m. because you're teaching them that they can write you and you'll get right back to them. So you're setting it up the way you want it to be. And so if you're feeling frustrated by your devices running you, then it's time to get back control. If you go to the focus and productivity shop of my website, I have there a video of how to organize your phone. And again, this is something we explore more in depth within the Beautiful Life Lab. But you know, getting back to someone else right away or having your devices run you doesn't make you a great business owner. It means your business is running you. It means other people are running you. And so this is the trap of being a business owner and being an entrepreneur. You feel guilty at times. Like you feel like you need to get back to people all the time, but it's like this thing that never stops. And then you despise your business. Then you regret going into business because at least when you worked the 9 to 5, you could leave and you could leave the work there, right? So you have to make an effort to own this and to teach people your way through how you respond, and be okay with not getting back to people right away. It's just, you gotta. It's one of the easiest places to begin if you want to care less about what people think. Start there. Start by not getting back to people right away. Because I bet your fear is that they won't join you, that they won't like you anymore, that, you know, there's a lot of those things attached to it. So explore that a little bit. Okay, last question for today. We'll wrap this up. Comes from Andrea. I'd love to know what you think the next wave of doTERRA looks like and what the second generation diamond leaders will need to do to get there. Okay, yeah, true story, Andrea. It's going to take a different approach. So first, as I predicted about 6 months ago, I shared with you guys that this would be the year you'd see a lot of quote unquote leaders or builders quit, not just in doTERRA, but in general. And by that, we could also bring into the fold anyone who defined themselves as an entrepreneur. Quitting, all out quitting this year to go back to work for the entrepreneurs, okay? The reason that's happening is because they weren't the driving visionary of their work. Someone else took them there, and that's okay. Not everyone is cut out to be a business owner. That's totally okay. So that's you. No shame in that. No shame in that. It's just some people dabbled. Some people were calling themselves one thing, but they weren't doing the work to actually earn the title, okay? Secondly, and this is specific in doTERRA, but honestly, I always extrapolate this out. It's like, I feel like what happens in doTERRA is happening on in the macro. Do you guys feel that too? This business is changing because the customer has changed. I shared this a little bit when we were talking about the question with FDA and oils. The customer of the last 10 years was an early adopter. Maybe that's you, okay? Someone that would be just fine with someone else calling them a hippie behind their back, right? Totally cool with it, identified with it. The customer of the next 10 years has a tighter grip on a few things. They have a tighter grip on their pill bottles or their fears about what someone else thinks of them. They weren't as willing as early adopters to let go of the opinion of other people. And so even though there are a lot of us modeling what's possible and what life looks like on the other side, when you trust yourself, when you let your intuition lead, when you take ownership of your health, like we talk about on this show all the time, even though there's a lot of us modeling that, it's taking the next group longer to make the change. So it's long game. The leaders of the next 10 years have to be obsessed with the long game. They are obsessed with being consistent and showing up and adding value to other people. They're professionals. They're not the amateurs. The amateurs are quitting right now. They quit a couple months ago, right? I love what Seth Godin said. I shared it on Instagram. If you guys saw a couple weeks ago, he shared on a podcast he was being interviewed on. He said, everyone talks about authenticity today as if that's what we're wanting. He's like, no, we don't want authenticity. We want professionals. We want people who are not showing up with this curated vulnerability, talking about all of their problems and complaining because they think that that's what people are wanting. No, he said, that's not what we're wanting. We're wanting professionals. We want someone who shows up consistently and adds value even when things may be going wrong, okay? Side note on that, pay attention to who doesn't engage with you when you're in a complaining energy, because that's a professional. You'll know the amateurs by the ones who come out to just huddle when somebody's stuck in negative energy. You'll see who all the amateurs are. They've literally just held up a sign, right? So the leaders of the next 10 years are much more focused on long game and consistency and care very much about moving an idea forward. And they care way less about what people think of them. That's leadership. That's what's needed. It calls into question my favorite question, which is, can I be trusted with more? Because that's asking, what is the level of personal ownership and integrity that I have when nobody's watching? Can I be trusted with more? Let's say I have this goal and I want to grow into a higher leader. Can I be trusted with that because of the life I'm living that I don't talk about on social media? The life that is happening day in and day out behind the scenes that nobody sees, okay? We have to build that foundation to be the leader that can be trusted with that level of growth into the next 10 years. And it's not easy. One thing I've always been very cautious of, and it's probably the reason that to this day, as a double diamond leader in doTERRA, I have never done a business opportunity class or webinar. I'm very protective of the work that we do. I take it very seriously. And I believe the work we're doing is changing the world. And I do not want to attract people to this work who think this is easy or who think this is about making money. I want to repel that. And so I don't do business opportunity webinars because I don't believe that the people that I'm looking to really work with are somebody who's going to come into this and have never used an essential oil before. They're going to be people who are committed to their own health, and they decide to help other people with that. And they decide because they took the time to educate themselves and put into practice what they're learning. Whew, okay, that's a wrap for today. Thank you for attending live. Thank you for those of you tuning into the podcast and for sharing the podcast out. And I want to just finish off with a quick review of the month left over on iTunes by Vivian. She left a long one, so I'll shorten it a little bit. She said, I'm a single mom, and I didn't have the time to commit to making the business part of doTERRA work, but I'm also not sure I could have done it too. I'm a pretty private person and need to do a lot of healing myself before I can feel anywhere near ready to teach and share with others. Finding Ange and her openness and realness to share with anyone in such a positive way blessed my life. Whether you're new to holistic health or want to learn about essential oils or personal development, she's your girl. She said, she goes on to say, I'm a model and a mentor for her in her life, and whether she admits it or not, she's a big fan in the background. Listen, I just want to say that I do not take lightly how many of you take your time to be here and to comment and one of the things that I love to I'd love to integrate help within my business, right? But one of the things that I will never, ever turn over to somebody else is my connection with you guys, because I value that so much in a world where it's like really tough to know what's true anymore, right? So Vivian, thank you. Even if you feel you're behind the scenes, and I appreciate you hopping on and sharing a review. We'd like to hook you up with a 50% off promo code to any of the Whole Fit coaching programs. Just message Jill at teamwholefit@gmail.com. And for your calendars, you guys, if you want to join this live next month, we'll be streaming on June 26th, the last Wednesday of June. Again, if you have a question you want to see answered live, you can hop over to wholefit.com/podcast. Just scroll down to the bottom. You'll find the question submission form, and I'll get this uploaded as an audio version tomorrow. It'll be episode 51, and I will be releasing a few other podcast audios. Yes, I will. I'm going to fill your summer with some good audio listening, because I'll be taking a little bit more time off on the head up front. So anyway, so appreciate you guys being here, and we'll see you here back June 26th. Hey, thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you liked the content, please consider hopping over to iTunes and leaving a review so that more people can find this show. If you have a question or a topic suggestion for future shows, head over to wholefit.com/pod question. You can also find all past episodes and show notes at wholefit.com/podcast. See you next time.